Thank you all for being here. And Adam, I'm going to start with you. Tell us the premise of Beyond.
Beyond is a story about a 13-year-old boy, Holden, who falls into a coma, and he wakes up as a 25-year-old, 12 years later, and, you know, he's struggling to put his life back together, and all of that's complicated by the fact that he has these unusual abilities to lift people into the air and send them flying across parking lots. So Beyond is his struggle to get all of that under control and also figure out how to live life as a 25-year-old with the mind of a 13-year-old.
I say that's already a stressful enough situation. I feel like going through those teen years are very helpful.
Yeah.
So when you skip all that and then have to deal with crazy powers, tell me what it's been like settling into the role.
Yeah, it's as you mentioned, those are such important points of everyone's life where you figure out who you are, and those years really shape the people that, as young adults, we identify ourselves as. So it was a very fun journey as a character to take those twists and turns, and you sort of see Holden age those 12 years in front of your eyes as the audience, and it was a privilege to be able to play.
Yeah, you have that's a lot to no pressure, but that is a lot to carry through to the screen.
It was a lot, and it was as I said, an amazing journey for the character, amazing journey, and a lot of fun for me to play, and it was a great time. We're hoping that it translates on screen. We're really excited about it.
Nice, and I know this series involves some special abilities and powers, and Tim, you've worked on Heroes and Heroes Were Born. How did your knowledge from those shows kind of help you out in working on this one?
Well, you know, there are definitely some similarities with the idea of people discovering that they have something extraordinary happening to them, but still having to live a very normal life or try to live a normal life. And it's that juxtaposition of the extraordinary with the normal that really, I think, creates drama, and that's a subject that's kind of fascinating to me.
Well, and it's very important, I feel like, when you have shows that have so many supernatural elements to keep them grounded, because we all want to be able to relate to a little part. And David, I'd love to hear, I know it's not just the supernatural aspect, there's a conspiracy that Holden gets pulled into. Can you tease a little about that?
Well, yeah, but everyone's seen, like, you know, Escape from Witch Mountain, and we didn't want to do that. We didn't want to do another show about a kid with powers, and the government wants the kid with powers to use for nefarious purposes. It really goes back to what we were just saying. I mean, if you were in a coma and you missed, you know, your first boner, your first joint.
Very important milestones.
Yeah, I mean, these are, and you had to function as an adult with no memory of that, you would be compelled to go back and figure out who you are, what makes you who you are. In this character's case, the things that make him who he is aren't like what you and I experienced growing up. They were on in some other dimension, some other world where the experiences were very real, incredibly terrifying, uplifting, religious, exciting. And that's really where the show lives. It's a metaphor for all of our adolescences writ large.
Well, and let's talk about that world building, because you're mentioning a lot of bigger picture things. Adam, do we dive into a lot of that in the first season?
Yes, we do. The show, it's interested in exploring the full capabilities of the human mind, and part of that is powers, part of that is a form of telekinesis, and the other part of it is, can the human mind travel? And when you're in a coma, does your mind stay with you in that coma, or does it travel to other dimensions, other worlds?
Does it?
I have to find
wait
out.
and see.
You'll have to watch.
I tried. Berkeley, I'm curious, with everything that your character can do, did you get to do some cool stunts or some cool training that you maybe didn't get to do before in your other work?
Absolutely. I mean, I grew up admiring the sci-fi genre, as well as just being a kid and loving superheroes, as I think we all do, and being at a Comic-Con event
kind of
like
an
this.
X-Man, like a little bit.
Exactly. Everyone,
cool.
you know, sees that this is such a cool part of life. So for me, it was a very cool thing to undertake, and there is a lot of, you know, preparation that goes into that. There are so many people and crew members, of stuntmen, visual effects, special effects, practical effects that goes into making stunts like you saw there possible. So really that's a thanks to our amazing team we had behind us as well to make everything sort of look as picturesque and as beautiful as it does on screen.
Nice, and I want to take a quick detour because you mentioned superheroes. Do you have a favorite hero did you read comics when you were growing up at all?
Sorry?
Do you have a favorite hero, like a favorite superhero?
Oh, my favorite superhero? Yeah. I think my superhero changed. It's like many points during my life. I was a huge Spider-Man fan growing up. I loved Batman growing up. You ever heard of those? I love Iron Man now. And I think as different avenues and different studios tell different parts of different stories, I find myself identifying and loving different superheroes growing up and even now.
Yeah, we're getting to see so many different sides of them.
And so many different sides. And even now in franchises nowadays, you start to love the villains too, which is such a cool part of the stories. So now I love villains of stories too. So I mean, I couldn't just pick one, and I still don't think I could.
Villains are just misunderstood superheroes, I think. So.
Really, at the end of the day, right?
See, you set this up for me
Yeah, it's
perfectly.
a fine line.
Okay, so what kind of villains will we be seeing in Beyonds?
Well,
Who wants to vague answer that question?
Well,
for
you got a glimpse at him in this little clip. He's wearing a yellow jacket, and so
do with that what you will. A yellow jacket.
He becomes a bit of our villain along the way.
And I'm curious quickly. Holden is obviously the lead, but what kind of other supporting cast members do we see work with him?
Well, Yellow Jacket becomes quite important, not just as a villain, but we thought the audience would be interested in understanding what a hitman really goes through in terms of being henpecked by his wife for not making enough money, having to walk places instead of being chauffeured there.
That's rough.
This man thought that by the time he reached this point in his killing life, things would just be better. I'm dead serious. And so we explore this character through the banality of middle management, except he happens to kill people for a living. And we think that this character deserves our empathy like any other. And I think the audience will enjoy a different side of how villains are depicted in science fiction shows like this.
So
you relate to him in a very different way.
It's really a cautionary tale to never become a hitman.
Absolutely. Certainly not middle management hitman.
Everybody note that. Well, thank you all so much for hanging out with us today.
Thank you.
And guys, make sure you watch Beyond when it comes to Freeform in 2017. And stay right here because we'll be back with more coverage from New York Comic Con in just a few.